going to try and do, although it is a mocked up situation, it is a situation that has happened many times in our clients' history, and it has been extremely useful to our clients, and it has proven itself to be of great benefit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start right off. We're going to jump in, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we will review during this webinar. What we're going to start out with is reasons or needs. There are a lot of reasons or needs that show themselves when we need to do customizations. You may need to speed up a process. You may need to take care of something for your customer service representatives. You may need to go through and put something on your e-commerce solution or on a mobile application that you've provided to your customers. Or it may just be an internal need that you have in a warehousing or something else. Regardless, those needs will tell us what we need to do. And that's what we'll talk about next, is what we need to do. And once we know what we need to do, we can review the M3 panels that are associated with that. And we need to take a good look at that review, because that review is going to look at the process, it's going to look at the fields, it's going to look at the data, it's going to look at everything we have to go through to provide a customization that's going to give us a valued and an excellent solution to the problem that we posed. It'll also tell us what we have to change. And sometimes that change can be done on panels, sometimes that change can be done on external websites, or sometimes that change doesn't even need to occur. That review will help us determine what we need to change and if there is something to change. And when we find what we want to change, we can look at why we want to customize it and how we're going to customize it, because those two things together can make up a big difference. The method that we choose of customization can easily impact how we make future heartbeat changes or upgrades to our system. What we want to do is create a solution that will be agnostic to heartbeats or agnostic to upgrades. And the way that we do that is what I'm going to go about. When we're all done, I'll have a short period of time where we will be able to do questions and answers. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump right in and talk about some of the reasons. As I said, this is a mocked up solution. And what I did was took from some of our clients a common situation, which is on the M3 system, going in and looking up orders or entering orders. And this is particularly important to people who run a telephone-based solution or who have many, many orders to put into the system at one time. This problem that we are going to address is the CSRs can't get the orders in quickly enough, or they can't check the order status quickly enough while they're on the phone. Customers are calling and they're asking for tracking information. And it's not just tracking about where something is being shipped. It may be tracked during your build process. It may be tracked during your repair process. It's any type of status that you're going to pull out of the M3 system. And that all depends on the customer lookup. In many, many cases, we've had solutions where we have to have customer information, order information that needs to go to an e-commerce solution or to a mobile application. What we're going to do today is talk about the use of web services and APIs to create a solution that's going to fill those needs. And why do we fill those needs? It's because adding customer service representatives and more telephone people is expensive, and it's a never-ending expense. It doesn't speed up the process. It doesn't give us anything. It's just an additional expense and additional cost. So we're going to look at customizing. And that customization is very important, because if you're on something like CRS 610 where you're looking up a customer, wouldn't it be nice if there was a button on the form that you could see their most current order, rather than having to drill down into OIS 100 and then step-by-step walk through the individual panels? There can be a great deal of panels that you have to go through to look up each CO and MCO. So in order to do that, we'll look at customization. Pardon me. What we're going to do, first and foremost, we're going to review and verify the process. We can't make a customization, we can't make a change effectively if we don't know what we're trying to solve. In our current situation that we're mocking up for this webinar, what we want to do is make it faster for our telephone sales personnel to enter an order more quickly. We want to make it quicker and faster for our customer service representatives to look up an order and look up customer information. Could be order information, billing information, any information more quickly. The process review will ensure that any software-based solutions that we make will meet our needs, and that the data that we're using will not be impacted, and that we won't affect the system in any way. And that's very important because we know we don't want to deal with any inserting of data or any changes to the system itself at the core level. The process review may reveal internal processes or changes that could enhance any software used. The process review will also give us a needs analysis or a wish list of options that we want to go through. Most importantly of all, that process review will tell you absolutely whether you need to do something or not, because sometimes just looking at a process and going through it tells us that we don't need to change our software. We need to change the way we're interacting with it. But in this case that we're talking about, we have a viable need. We have a solution that we have to put in. We need to get an order done every 15 or 20 seconds, so we've got to have a lot of information in front of our customer service representatives in order to do that. So in order to do that, we start reviewing the M3 panels. As we go through the panels, we will find the fields that we need. If we're starting out with the customer information, we're going to start out and say CRS 610. Each of the fields on there that we want to have in our external application, we need to document those. Once we grab that, we have to take a look at what that field is. Now, those fields, we need a competent person who's used to working with M3 to find that information. But it's as simple as clicking on the field and clicking on the field level help. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the physical name of the field, like Kono, company number. From that information there, you can use your favorite metadata publisher tool or metadata tool to figure out what tables that is in, or more importantly, what API we can use to find that information, because in our case, the APIs are where we really want to work with. It gives us a clean and a simple way to work with any modifications that we're going to do, whether that modification happens to be done using customizations to an individual panel, or whether that modification has to do with developing a whole new interface on your website or somewhere else. So what do we change? In our case, we're taking a look at, we need to have all of our customer information and all of that customer's orders. If we're on a panel, originally when I was showing the original 610 screen, I said, wouldn't it be nice to have a button on that screen? You could do that. It's a very simple customization that you can put in there using JScript. For our example, we're not going to talk about that because I'm going to assume that everyone is more than competent enough to handle that. So what we're going to do is create an external page that we can look up very quickly based on customer information, the information that we need to have, and that customization will run on an external website but still access all of the M3 data in its entirety. Why do we want to do custom external? Because it gives us precise control. We can get exactly what we want on one screen. Maybe your maybe your CSRs need to know exactly what customer order has been sent, what their previous orders were, and everything else. Rather than to have 5 separate panels open, what we're going to look at is creating a single screen on a single website that they can look up the customer and have all of that customer's information right there. The order information, the status of the order, any outstanding balances, anything that goes with it. And that's what I mean by when I say we tailor it to our exact need. When we have a need, we fill that need, and that need is filled by creating a custom solution that will look at all of the order information and give it to us in a clean, concise page on our screen. What we will do is we will loosely couple this application. What I mean by that is we're not going to tie it directly into a single customer. We're not going to tie it directly into a single lookup. We're going to use APIs to access the M3 data through a web service. And what this does is it provides easier maintenance, and as you upgrade, it has little to no impact. Due to the fact that M3 does not, I'm not going to say never delete fields, but does not delete fields, and fields don't often change. When modifications are made or enhancements are made, those fields are added to the tables. The APIs are an extremely good way to get that information. There is one thing that we do need to address at this point when we're looking at that, is every installation is different. Although the API works with most of the common fields, there may be fields that you used as a user-defined field, or something that you have added to your screens that you need to have. You'll need to document that information, and anything that you've done with it will need to know where that data goes. We have to have that information to effectively build a solution. So how do we do this? Well, this is a simple six-step process that we go through. We find our APIs. We test those APIs. We troubleshoot everything that goes through them. And you notice that it says test and then troubleshoot. That troubleshooting is not going through and looking for problems that you've created. The troubleshooting is going through and making sure that the API or the web service that we've chosen from M3 is actually putting the data in or pulling the data out that we need to use. So that's what we mean by troubleshooting. We're going to test it, and I will show you how to use that test solution, and we're going to verify that the information that is on our M3 panels is actually what we're going to get back to our new front end. Then we're going to do the coding, and then we're going to do the testing, and finally we will deploy that solution. And if we follow this methodology and we follow these 6 simple steps, you'll be guaranteed and assured of success every single time, because you already know what you're going to get. Once you get past the troubleshooting portion of your development, you know for sure that all of the data that you're going to use and all of the information that you're going to have is going to be displayable. So now you only need to focus on the form or the presentation that you're going to use to put that in. How do we do this? Our APIs. The APIs are the vehicle we use to ensure our data goes to the right place. If we're using an API to query the data, no matter what happens, we know that every time we query that API or that web service, the same data is going to come out regardless of what version we're running on, regardless of what upgrades we've made. When we use an API rather than direct writes to the database, we ensure integrity. In our particular situation, we aren't writing anything to the database, but in most cases, you're going to be doing something. You may want to change a status. You may want to change something that goes on. The same APIs that we use to read the information most often can be used to write the information back. But we never, ever want to write data directly to the tables that are in M3. In a case where you need to write data back that may not be part of M3 data, we found it very effective to go through and create a secondary set of tables on DB2 and then link those tables together on an ID. That's not going to really be part of this particular webinar, but it's something that does come up, and it's something that many, many times you have to deal with, and that's the way that we found most effective to deal with it. But how do we find the right API to use? Well, if you remember back when we talked about what are we going to do, what panels are we on? Well, we can go find those panels. There are some tools in M3, MI-Test and MI-Test++. Personally, I like the ++ version, but I'm sticking with the standard version for this webinar. Using that, we can go through and we can find the API as well as metadata publisher and other tools in the clips that we can use to find them. And then we can test that API and we can put it into there and see what information it pulls up. And you can go through and test a transaction. You could pull single records, multiple records. There's many, many variations that you can use to find out for sure that the data that you're looking for is available to you on an external basis. In the event that the data is not available, there are tools within M3. You can build custom solutions. You can have custom APIs created. But most often, we have found that most of the data that we're looking for is already available. So what that does is we're going to look at taking an API and a web service. We're going to use M3's API-WS web service, which allows us to launch against a particular program. And in this case, you see that I've chosen the program CRS610. Once I choose that CRS610, I can look at my transaction information that I want to get. How do I want to get my customer? Do I want to get it by customer name? Do I want to get it by customer number? You could put this information, you could select it, you click run, and when you do that, that information is going to come right back to you. The second you have gone through all of these, you can look and see that, yes, I am getting my information, or no, I'm not. There are certain cases where you need to go through and you will be pulling data from different forms. Each of those web services can be called singularly, or you could group them together and read it all at once. We've found in many cases that an asynchronous call, getting all the data at once, is the most effective way that you can use to get data. It'll also give you the best speed. It'll give you the most satisfying user experience. Once you have all of your data and you know for sure that based on the APIs you've chosen, And based on the program panels that you've chosen, that you have all of the information that you need, you could start coding your panels. You can do this in JavaScript, or you can do it in .NET. We prefer most often to use a .NET-based solution, although you could use PHP or a variety of other vehicles to access this data. Once it's in there, using .NET gives us a very, very simple way to create a new namespace. That namespace allows us to grab that transaction, and you can look at the transaction as either a header or detail. It gets particularly important once you get down into the COs and MCOs that may be joined to have that information and be available to loop through each. At the end of this webinar, and if you need it, we'll be glad to send you sample code that will pull things together from both CRS 610 and OIS 100 so that you can see how an order from a customer can be joined to a customer and very quickly read. We'll have it available in .NET VB as well as .NET C#. If you wanted something in a PHP version, just send us an email and we'll make sure that you get that information. The coding, though, that goes through there needs to really be done by a competent person. We know you all have that person on staff. If you don't have that person on staff, I would strongly suggest that you get someone who has a good deal of M3 experience or Lawson experience to work on this, because it is not something that you can just pick up. It's not going to be someone that you're going to grab and off the street and put into place and have them do it right off the bat. The coding is a little bit different. The interaction with the data is a little bit different, but once they've got it, it's very easy to do. So after we've gotten our code written and after we've gotten our pieces together, how do we ensure that the code that we have written is actually pulling the data that we thought it would? We go back to that same test solution that we were looking at. Now I'm going to use the M3 API Web Services test, and that's what we'll use to go through this. So what we do is we bring up on our screen, our new custom screen, the information that we want to have. We search for that, and then we match it line by line, data element by data element, to what is on our web service screen. And then we have to take it one step further. I personally prefer to print these screens out and do a screen print of any web solutions that we create, and then go back to the M3 panels themselves and actually edit the panel and view the data to make sure that it matches exactly. This is extremely important when you get into the esoteric orders or the esoteric things that you need to do with a customer. Maybe you're on a customer screen and you need to go into that customer and you've got to drill down into an order that was filled 4 months ago. And you've got to look at the particular CO that went through there to see where the parts came from that you built something on. That type, if you're going to that level of detail, you really need to step through each piece and verify everything that you're going on. Without that verification, you can't be absolutely sure that you got it correct. If you're doing just simple lookups and simple order things, just stepping through a few of these orders at a time will give you more than enough confidence that the information you're putting up is actually correct. Once we have that, we can then talk about what are we going to do to deploy this. We can now take this to our own custom application or our own custom server. And what we'll do with it at that point is all up to us. We've found a great deal of satisfaction in providing single web pages for its particular uses. When you have a customer service representative, they don't need to see about pricing. They don't need to see what's on there. They need to see the order total. They need to see the status. They need to see what's going on. Maybe you have a mobile application or a web-based application that you want to give someone information to, or your individual clients, you want to give them information. This is an extremely effective way to do it. It's very easy. It's very clean. It's very simple, and it fills a need, and that need helps you grow your business because you're providing a better level of support to your customers. That's what everything in customization is really about. It's not about taking care of what you have to have on the screen. It's about taking care of your business so that you can grow the business to continue on with what you need to do. We also have to consider more than one thing. We need to consider the availability of resources within our company and outside that can support with our development. If you don't have the staff or you don't have the talent to do that, seriously consider hiring someone or consulting with someone like Nogales to take care of that for you. If you have the staff and you have the availability, then you have everything that you need. It's always easy to go through and try this. You can't hurt anything if you're just trying it and not writing anything back. The only thing that you lose is your time. One of the great things that you have to also think of is upgrade friendliness. If you go through and you customize your panels or personalize your panels and use JScript to do that, there are many cases during upgrades where you will have to go back and re-add those customizations. That can be costly over a period of time. If they're externally done, there's a very, very good chance that they will not be affected at all. In my experience over the past few years, we have not had one single custom web service that we have used that has changed after an upgrade that we had to make any changes to the code for. It just continued to run. We may have had to recompile the web service, or we may have had to re-enable a web service, but that was the extent of the upgrade. So stepping through those pieces was extremely important to us during that upgrade process. Another thing that you need to look at is performance. If you're getting everything you need within the M3 panels, and if you're getting everything that you have to have in a time-sensitive way from M3, then by all means, don't think about customization. But if you aren't getting what you have to have done within a period of time, if you have to have an order completed every 20 seconds, you know that that's not going to happen stepping through the screens. But if you create a custom solution, you can make profound impacts on your CSRs or your people's ability to perform in a manner that you're looking for them. There's dependencies that we also have to look at. Sometimes, as I was talking about COs and MCOs that may be dependent upon each other, or orders that have dependencies to go through, if those dependencies are there, you need to take a very close look at them and make sure that your custom application meets those needs. And finally, security. As you go out into a web-based world, or as you expand outside the side of your building, your security becomes very important. Even internally, security can be extremely important. As you're creating external applications, remember that you have the capability to use the exact same users and the exact same domain-based information that you use internally on your smart office in your custom applications, and that can be built right into there. That domain access is there. It can look at your user. You can pass that token back to M3, and it will work so that the security that you have built your business around can be maintained externally. What I'm going to do is, as we go through this, Nogales is offering, help with anyone in a lot of different areas, and that will be available until the end of July. And what we'll do is, next phase of this three-part series is going to be taking the customizations that we made, and in that one, we'll actually be taking a look at the screens that were built for some clients and using them to port that information to an e-commerce solution and mobile apps. And at this time, what I'd like to do is say thank you very much for listening. I hope you found this to be informative. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer your questions at this point. Thank you very much.
So if you have questions, you can type them in the bottom left of your screen into the chat box, and I'm going to stop recording the session now.